Well, hello. I don't even know if that video showed on the screen or not. Is that not the weirdest thing? Oh my goodness. How are you doing today? It is Friday, and that means it is time for Muppin Sewing Emporium. My name is Cheryl, and I am your host tonight and every night here on Muppin Sewing Emporium. What's going on? If you're out there, say hello. Tell me where you're from. Hopefully, you are having a wonderful weekend. It is a beautiful, sunny ish 54 degrees outside. It is so cold. And yeah, So, welcome to the Emporium. How are you doing tonight? Today is Charlie's birthday. Today is Mr. Charlie's birthday. He is um it's also eclipse weekend here in Paducah. We are going to have the eclipse, and that's exciting. And Charlotte's here. She lives around the corner from me. And I got to see you today, Charlotte. So that's very exciting. So yeah, today it's eclipse weekend, and it feels like I think tomorrow we're gonna start seeing everybody. Kathy! So I have to tell you, I have been following Kathy's shop, which is called Psycho Granny's Quilt Shop, and she's in Smiths Groves, Kentucky. And back when we were doing like this online, sort of like a virtual, what was it? It was like a virtual quilt, like quilt market. It was for vendors and for shops only. And I remember going through and making this giant list of every quilt shop in America. And the one store that stuck out to me as probably a kindred spirit was Psycho Granny's. And it just happens now that we are both in Kentucky. You can get double your amazingness from crazy like-minded people like me and Kathy. And so welcome, Kathy. Hopefully you are having a wonderful day. Joy's here. Welcome, Joy. How are you doing tonight? I just have to say, yeah. So Kathy, love your shop. Love that your husband is an amazing artist, and so that is so awesome too. We today had a 100% surprise visit from my youngest, well, like he's not my youngest brother, but he's my middle youngest brother. And he came all the way from Chicago, was on his way through, and so he came to visit today and completely surprised me. Like 100% surprised. So that was amazing. So I am having a great day. I don't know about you, but I'm having a great day. That said, I definitely am really, really tired of having this allergy thing going on today. So he's my middle youngest brother. So I have three brothers. He would be the middle. So um he wouldn't be my old, well, and I am the oldest. So I can't say like the oldest of my brothers or the middle of my brothers or my youngest brother. He's the middle youngest. That's what he is. Is that, I know that's not really good English. But and his name is Gilbert, and we call him Gib. And Gib is here visiting, and not visiting, but he's like on his way through. So he stopped in Paducah on his way through. So I was very excited about that. Um, the allergies are the charts, off the charts. And can I tell you, the wind here has been so bad, so bad. So we've had a little bit of construction happening on our street, and there were, those big cones that they put out. They're big cones. They're not like tiny cones. They're big. They're like barrels. And the wind was so bad earlier this week, it blew all the cones and they were like sliding down the street. And um wherever this wind is coming from, I am allergic to it. And so I have had that bad post-nasal drip thing, and now I've got like that husky voice going on. And I'm really just over it. I really just want the allergy medicines to kick in and not make me feel like I need to take a nap. So that's where I'm at today. I don't know how you're doing, but I am tired of the wind blowing in the nasty allergy stuff. So, I blew down the cabinet on, oh my gosh. I am telling you, I would be surprised around here that we should have had more downed trees here. I'm really surprised we haven't had more downed trees here in Paducah. It's been so windy. Hey, how are you? Hope you are doing well. I'm so excited to see all of you tonight. And I just have to say, my bangs are at this like perfect length. Now, they stay like this for almost exactly 1 week. And in 1 week they will be too long, and then I will cut them, and then they will be too short. So, this is that perfect bang length. This is my favorite look. I'm just saying. Anyway, that's not why you're here. You're here, I'm sure, to see this last of our ruching demos. I'm going to throw this up on the screen. All right, so this one I'm doing a little bit different. And I do have to show you the other pieces in this collection. Okay, so here's what I've got. So we did the first one. Let's move all that out of the way. The first one we did was this one. And this is about as traditional ruching as it gets. Okay? You have the traditional V shapes on your strip of fabric. Okay? I don't mark the V. I just mark the top and the bottom, and you just sew towards the marks, right? In a zigzag formation. These marks are 1 inch apart, and that's the ruching that you get. This one, the marks are, what are they, 2 inches apart? I think they're 2 inches apart. And you get this one, okay? And just notice, so both of these started the same width, okay? They both started out about yay wide, yay being about 1 inch, okay? Just back that up a little bit. So they start off this wide. This is 2 inches apart. This is 1 inch apart. And then there was the third option, which is this one. And as you can see, someone mentioned that this one looks like rickrack. I guess I can see that. Okay, so how this one is done is this bottom one is done in like a square formation, and it's done in 1 inch marks. And I'll just show you here with the heirloom smocking template. Okay, so you would mark down, and then every inch, okay, you would mark across, and then you would sew down the strip and across the strip and up the strip and across the strip, and it's so you would go up and down in like a very square shape. It doesn't turn out very square, but because you are doing the ruching or the gathering along one edge of the strip, you get that one little spot there that really um does something cool. Now, these are not the only things that you can do with this type of gathering technique. There's so much. I mean, honestly, it's sort of infinite as to how far or how much you want to do. And I am writing the book currently for the gathering techniques, and so a lot of that is going to get covered in the book, so there will be even more than this. But as I have said before, these yellow projects here that we've been doing on this show, these yellow projects are for a tuffet. And that tuffet is going to be on display in our shop during Quilt Week, which I don't know about you, but Quilt Week is only 2 weeks away. So Cheryl had better get a little move on to get this done, because I'm running out of time. and so what we've got here are 3 examples, and I'm going to do a 4th one. And I was trying to decide like which technique to do next. And I think I've stumbled on what I want to do. So we will see. Robin is here. Robin, hello. How are you doing tonight? I'm very stuffy because it's allergy wind season. I'm allergic to spring, and spring and I are not having a very good time right now. And so we're doing our best. Okay. So, I am going to, so this is a piece of thread that's on this needle. As you know, I normally will tell you, take whatever is on your needle, okay? I don't know how often this has gone through the fabric. I don't know if this is even good anymore. So I'm going to just throw this piece of thread attached to this needle away. It's going to be okay. They will still make thread, and they will still sell you more thread. Oh no, Robin, you've got bronchitis. That is what I'm trying to avoid. I've been trying to really, really not get that post-nasal drip thing that turns into the illness, because I really, really, really don't want that. Now, today on this on this particular strip, I'm going to be doing something a little different, and it's going to require 2 needles going at the same time. And you're like, what? I have never heard of that. And I have never really tried this before. So your guess on how this will turn out is as good as mine. All right, so I'm looking for a needle. I'm, of course, looking in my pincushion, and I don't have one. So here we go. We'll just have to bust out a new needle. Yay! Um, I was telling Charlie what I want in here in the video studio is a um one of those buttons. It's a little suite of buttons, and you just push the button whenever you want like a particular sound effect. And I want one that would make the little cheers, whenever I need to have a little cheering section. Okay, so here's two needles. These are going to be going at the same time. And I'm just throwing a quilter's knot in each of that. Robin says, I love your commitment to vintage and Victorian arts. I appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, so for this particular strip, you may notice that we started off with something just a little bit different to begin with. The last two strips, the raw edges were folded in and then they were pressed, but the raw edges were still here in the center. That is not what is happening here. What's happening here is that the strip is has been sewn, and you can see there I've sewn it. And what I did was I took it to the iron, and I very carefully pressed it so that it was the center seam. The seam was in the center of the strip. So there's going to be on this particular one a right side and a wrong side. And I'm always doing my stitches on the wrong side of the fabric. That would be true on the other versions of the ruching. And it's easier to see on the other ruching. You see the raw edge on the one side, and then your finished side is more finished. We don't have this happening here, but we are going to have two threads going at once. So I just want to show you here, I have already marked my fabric, and what I've done is I've placed my template on the the strip, but I have centered that center line here, and then every inch and a half I have made a mark on the top and the bottom. And for those of you that are like, I can't see where those marks are, you will have to trust me that they're there. And they are there across the whole strip. But if I get it up nice and close, you can see that little mark right there. So what we're going to do, and we're going to start with the first one here, is we're going to go into the fabric. We're going through all the layers. So that's the key here. And as you can see, I'm doing a scant 1/4 inch-ish from the edge. And what I am going to do here, though, is I'm going to sew to the knot, and then I am going to sew right in that same spot. And that's going to be my anchor, so that when I start pulling on this, that knot will not come out. I want that knot to stay there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this running stitch, and because I'm using a nice long needle, you're getting those nice even running stitches. And then about, I don't know, about 1/4 inch away from my mark. Okay, you can see that? So that's about 1/4 inch away. I'm going to start angling to that and go over the edge. Oops. Got to make sure all my stitches stay on the one end. Go over the edge of that that top there, and then back down, and then we're gonna running stitch all the way to the next mark, where we're gonna stop about a 1/4 inch away, and then we're going to angle up over the edge and back down. Now, this is where I'm gonna stop, okay, right here. So just so you can see my stitches there, we've got running stitch up, running stitch up, okay? And we're gonna do this exact same thing along the bottom edge, which is why we needed 2 needles. So I'm going to start down here, go pull to the knot, go ahead and insert that a second time. And then I'm going to do the exact same style of stitches, but okay, they don't have to mirror the top at all. Okay. They you don't have to, like, even though I have gotten really lucky there, I don't have to make them exact like the row above it. What you do have to do, however, is go over the edge and then back down. And we're only going to do this like one section here, and then we're going to pull, and you're going to have to pull both the top and the bottom thread at the same, not at the same time, but like at the same time. Okay. Now this design came from a book on Victorian trim. So if you're ever wondering, like, where does Cheryl get all of her ideas? I read a lot of late 1800s and early 1900s sewing books. So that's where it all comes from. Okay, so now we're going to give that tug, and we're not trying to pull. See, if we just pull one, right, you only get one side, and you've got to pull both. Okay. Now, the part here with the, and there's always zhuzhing involved. Okay, you're like, what is zhuzhing? Zhuzhing is that little adjustment that you need to make, that little zhuzh. That's what a zhuzhing is. Okay, so you can see you've got ruffles along the top and the bottom, but you have that occasional indent. That is what we're going for. Okay, see that? I know it's hard to see now because I've only done one, but all right. So what we have to do is we have to keep our threads separated here. And what I need to do also is to take a stay stitch right here so that we can continue on with our stitching. And we need to do that on both sides. And we need to do that so that when we go to pull on these again, we're not losing the whole strip. Ask me how I know. I have done this so many times where I have started to do the gathers, and then I will get the whole strip done and I start to pull and it will break somewhere in the middle. So we're not here for that today. So our last thing was a little divot, so we're just going to keep going straight. Remember, this is about scant 1/4 inch. And you can use your, well, let's see, what did I do here? Did I get it caught in the middle? No, I didn't. See? This is why you got to have your needles very separated because this can be a hot mess. Okay, so what was I saying? Right. When you're doing this, you want that scant 1/4 inch. Now, you can make your 1/4 inch in the middle or away from the center or away from the edge as long as you're consistent. It doesn't matter which 1/4 inch you're kind of going for. You do want to make sure you go through all your layers. Okay, you do want these stitches to appear on the back and the front. That is going to be important. And I will probably only give myself 2 or 3 rows of stitching before I change the thread. And the reason for that is because as you keep stitching along and as you keep pulling the thread, you're putting a lot of tension on this single piece of thread and you're asking it to do an awful lot. And when we do that, all threads break with enough stress, but because we've gone so much in and out of the fabric and we're pulling on it, we're kind of asking it to do an awful lot. So I'm actually going to put, what am I on here? I'm going to get up to three of the motifs before I do the other side and pull. And this spot here was a good spot to stop on that last round. So I am going to just stay like right there. And then now I can take the needle on the top side and do this again. So you can see here you can sort of see the motif happening. Of course, every time I flip it, I have to move the thread out of the way. All right, so Paducah is in the zone of totality for the eclipse, and our hotels here have been sold out for months, and we have been planning a street festival and all kinds of fun stuff. So if you are coming to Paducah for the eclipse, I think you should. That would be a lot of fun. My dad is coming for the eclipse, which is awesome. And so I'm excited about that. And we're going to have a merry old time looking at the sunball. We got the special glasses. We made sure they were the right kind. And so I'm pretty excited about that. And, don't go out there and just look at the sun without the glasses on. That would not be a smart thing. Even as a kid, they told us not to do that. So, and then I wish Max was here because we would build a pinhole camera. I've done that before, and that would have been a lot of fun to do with Max. But I might build one just to do one here. So, okay, and so now we've got the 2 rows of stitching. I'm going to give you guys that close-up look. Let me get this to focus. There we go. Okay, so you can see how that stitching looks. Okay, isn't that cool? All right, now we're just going to I'm going to try to do kind of both gently at the same time if I can. looks like one and the other is probably the best way to go. A lot of this too, you have to remember, you kind of want to like scooch your stitches down the length of the thread, which is what I'm doing here. And then you have to come back and you always have to zhuzh. You always everyone is like, I don't like how my smocking turned out. I don't like how my ruching turned out. Well, did you spend a minute and zhuzh it? Because zhuzhing is the key. I want to meet your dad. I'm working, so I'll have just enough time to run out in the field and then watch and then back to work. It is on a Monday. Um, so I guess, yeah, it is. It is on a Monday. Um, so but where our shop is closed anyway. So that's the only reason Dad feels like he can come bother us is because our store is already closed on Mondays. So, all right, and so here's a little more of how this looks. You can see these little indentations happening. And again, don't forget, you just got to give them that little wiggle, that little zhuzh. I'm kind of liking it. June says a bourbon hot toddy will help you feel better. I hope so. That sounds amazing. If it wasn't for the I think I would have been fine except for like that stuffiness, and it's just all going the wrong direction. So, all right. And so once you get that little spot tucked, you then come back in and you just want to give yourself a new anchor point. And that's just where you go through the fabric one more time. Oops. Lost the needle. Or is it I lost the thread? I can't tell. There we go. Oops. Ay ay ay. You know, I do this. I end up doing this on national TV too. I'll tell you. It's funny because well, I might as well give you all the heads up. They've asked me to come back and film again, but I won't tell you which show. But one of the shows has asked me to come back and record for them again. So isn't that exciting? Um so that's kind of cool. I'm excited. All right. So we've got that stitch done. I'm just going to take this stitch here and then we can continue on. We can carry on. So the shop is starting to fill up with new fabric. Next week, well, I'm expecting it more the week after, but there's a big shipment coming in, and it's huge, and it's so big it's to a point where I'm like, where is all of my current fabric going to go? Because it's going to displace it. So it's going to have to go somewhere in the store. I just don't know where. But we have 3 brands coming into the store for Quilt Week, and I'm very excited about that. For those of you that know Maddie, the badass quilter from the Badass Quilter Society, she will be here in the store during Quilt Week on Friday, and she will be doing a meet and greet on Friday at noon. And so that's pretty cool. She is the world famous Badass Quilter Society, and she's coming to do a meet and greet here on Friday of Quilt Week. So, how fun is that? And then we have the Tula Pink fabrics coming in, the Roar fabrics. They're dinosaurs. And who doesn't love a good dinosaur fabric? I will say that somebody said something the other day about quilt fabric, and I was just really I was on fire about the whole quilt fabric and what we want as, you know, Gen Xers. We want our childhood fabrics back. And somebody said to me, um, if you were big into Lisa Frank, and I was as a, I don't know, I as a kid, I had Lisa Frank everything. Somebody said, take a look at your fabric stash and tell me that the Tula Pink and the K facets and all of those kinds of bold colorways don't scream modern day uh Lisa Frank. And I was like, "Oh my gosh. They're so right. They're so right." So if you were a Lisa Frank uh 80s kid and you had all the folders and the Trapper Keeper and the things, then you probably know that the Tula Pink fabric is probably your modern day equivalent. So, oh, I did 4. I think that's like too much, but we'll see when I start pulling on this if that was too much. Okay. So you can see I've done 4 divots. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I think that's too many, but it just gets difficult to pull it without it breaking. I guess we'll find out. I know now you're like, see if it breaks. I don't want it to break. That's the whole point. I don't want it to break. Okay, so see how I get myself this little tail like that? I just got to make it a little longer for myself. One of these pieces of thread I started off, it was really thin. It was short. So, um yes, right? Kathy, Lisa Frank, Tula Pink's great analogy. It is for those of us that loved Lisa Frank. We are uh that's why we're attracted to Tula Pink and even K facets, like bright obnoxious colors. And especially that pink. You know, the pink that was like unicorn and rainbow and a little bit of everything, and I mean that's why we like that. Honestly, someone should just get the Lisa Frank license. I think we would all buy that fabric. I would. I don't know about you, but I would buy that fabric. Get on it, fabric licensors. I'm handing you these $1,000,000 ideas. So, yeah. There's a reason it sold so well and why Lisa Frank is still sold on uh for schools to this day. I mean, you can still buy Lisa Frank folders and stuff for school. So, that's all I'm saying is we're just trying out here to live our childhoods. And boys have it easy. They can go get their childhoods in the store still. They're still selling GI Joe and Transformers. We need some Rainbow Brights and stuff like that. But not just the toys. We want it in other ways too. We want our Rainbow Bright and our you know, Hello Kitties and stuff like that. All right. We're at the stopping point here, the pulling point. Okay, you're gonna say, like, Cheryl, that's really sloppy, but no one cares because it's all gonna look like this in the end. So, right? Okay, so we're gonna scooch on one and scooch on the other. Try to keep this moving on down the road. But I don't want to pull too hard because I will break this. I know it. Just gonna keep on sliding. This is where, people get that, they get overzealous and they over strangle the fabric. And you don't want to overdo it. You just need a little bit of pulling, not a lot. Okay, so we've got both. And then you can see, I know this is hard for you probably to envision, but to me, like, it's too tightly pulled here. So we're just gonna give it a little bit of a loose pull. Give it a little bit of a zhuzh. And now here it's way too loose. So I gotta find the threads first. Well, we lost the needle on this one. So let's put the needle back on here. And I do think that that means that these have hit their limit. And a lot of people, they will ask me, like, well, how do you know? How do you know? Well, one, I've been doing this a really long time. So that's how I know. Okay? But I am going to knot this because I am going to be done with this piece of thread. And I'll show you what I mean. Okay? So there are a lot of factors to look at when you're looking at your thread. Okay? A lot of times, I mean, if you really have a good magnifier, look at the piece of thread under a magnifier. You'll start to see all of these little hairs coming off of the thread. But this to me is always a really, really good indicator. And let me put it against something dark here, like my shirt. Okay. You see how sort of frayed that end looks. Now that end was cut, right? It was cut really bluntly. Okay, that's the short end on my single length here. And this little blunt end, let me do it like that. Okay. It's like really hairy. And the reason we want this, let me see if I can get it to focus. It's thinking about it. Okay. The reason we want that to be, let me do it this way. Okay. It's hard to see it, but it's really frayed. And the more this little end goes in and out of the fabric, the more it's just gonna, it's to me, that little end is an indicator of how frayed, right, the rest of the length of the thread is. Okay? So when that end starts to get to look like that, like a little wispy, it's time to throw that piece of thread away. Now on this end, we have to do that little last pull, and we'll go in and take our knot here. I just gave it a couple of anchor stitches, some stay stitches, so that should this knot pop, so got something else to tack it with. And then I can go back and I can make some more, like, more zhuzhing that's happening here. Okay. Now you're probably like, well, this is not as like deeply um V'd or whatever as these. Okay. It's just another trim that I'm trying. Okay. These are all experiments. They don't have to be all the same. And, again, for a trim perspective, this is just one of those many options that you have. So, one of the other things that I've been looking to do is how many of these can I fit on the width of my fabric? Now, see if I can pull. Here's the rouleau. Ah, Brenda, thank you. I like it too. It's different. Okay? It's not as like bubbly, it's not as frilly. Okay? There's a lot of different uses for this stuff. Sorry, I dropped the fabric right onto the floor. I like it too though. Okay, so here's the rouleau we did a couple of weeks ago. And this is how wide the entire width of this fabric is. And it's not very wide at all. According to this, it's 9 inches wide, but really only about 8 inches of it is usable. So I've been trying to think, like, how do I want these to appear on this background? So that has been right now my next thought process while, I'm still finishing this piece. And if you remember, there's a significant part of this that is over the edge of the tuffet. So let's, for example, this is even yellow, so this is a nice description. Okay, so let's imagine this is my tuffet. This is a very small tuffet. But if this was my tuffet and these panels, right, are in sections that go around it, remember, I'm going to have a center button, so I can't go too far into the center. And then there's the shoulder, and that's this section here. Okay. So it gets wide here and then it goes straight down. So this part here is the top of the tuffet. And then from here to here is the side. And anything past this goes under the tuffet and gets stapled to the bottom. So when you have, and let's just flip it over for plainness. Let's pretend this is plain. We have these that have to be in the zone, okay, but also um show themselves in their best possible light. Okay. And so a lot of that is like, how do I want that to be? Do I want it to them to come down in strips like this? Because I can really only fit four total. Okay. So I can have, you know, these two longer ones in the center, and this one, which is shorter on the side, and this one sort of will be however long it will be. And that way I get all four. Or, and this is where the challenge comes in, do I want it to be freeform like this? Okay. Do I want to say, have one going across, another one sort of turned into a flower with, a long stem, because that's kind of interesting. So if I were to, take some pins and pin this into place, you kind of get an idea, right? And then, this one sort of becomes its own little weird circle, and do something like this. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, this is the part where I've done them, but now I've got to figure out, what do I want to do with them? So, do I want to have these sort of spirally circle things like that? I mean, that's interesting in a way. Um, and then sort of do the same thing with this last one, right? I don't know. I'm kind of liking this, just because it's a little more organic and it goes along with the organic nature of this one. But this is the next step once I get this one finished. Um, then it comes down to, how do I want to um present it on the panel, right? And I think this is kind of neat. I could do this the other way where they're sort of nestled. Maybe this is smarter. This is just, this is the design and play part. Um, is to, like, let's get a pin here for this one. Okay, so if it's more like that, or let's pretend, let's just throw this upside down so that we know what we're doing here. But yeah, I mean, I kind of like that too. I don't know. But remember, it's going to be like this. Um, so you want to make sure that you have enough covering. I kind of like the flower idea too, because I ultimately, that's what most people make out of the ruching, is a flower. So it's definitely something I think that lends itself to that design. But you notice you get the different kinds of flowers depending on how big your ruching went. And then, of course, you know, this one, which is going to be wild. I mean, they're all different. I just kind of love it. It's so cool, you know? So I think this is, the next stage. And then somewhere in this room is the next panel. Is it right here? I think it is right here. Oh, so now you know what I'm doing with this. In the meantime, I still have a little bit more to go. I'll probably finish this tonight and then be ready to attach them to the background. So stay tuned to my social media. You'll see the final result. But here's another project I've been working on for what feels like ages, millennia almost. These are K Facet, and K Facet had a stack of little 2.5-inch charms, and I love the 2.5-inch charm little stacks because they're like a little swatch of different fabrics. And if you like certain companies, you'll probably like the little swatches, right? So you don't have to make a huge investment. You don't have to buy the line. You can buy just the little swatches. And I love that. Well, this was a stack of 250 swatches from a particular K Facet line from years ago, like 10 plus years ago. And I bought that little stack of fabric while shopping in a fabric store in Florida with my mother. And for years, I've been making the hexagons. So finally got through all 250 hexagons. Then I started sewing them into the rounds. Well, as you can see, here's the rounds. And my hexagon papers I cut out of cardstock junk mail cardstock that came in the mail. I have a cutter and I just cut the papers and there I went, right? So I had free access to papers and free, you can see there some old phone numbers on the back. Okay, and I just love that because I've seen old hexagon projects with old newspaper clippings inside, and it's actually just kind of cool. So anyway, so I started sewing the borders on, and wouldn't you know it, I'm out of the gray fabric. So I say to myself, hey self, you've got nearly a whole bolt of this gray fabric back at the shop. So just wait until you get to the shop and get the rest of the gray fabric. So here's a piece of the gray fabric. Notice anything? They're not the same gray. And I don't know. I know you can see the difference here in the camera. It is even more striking in person. It is so striking. I'm like, there's no way I can use that gray fabric for this quilt. So now I have to go hunt down this gray fabric. And I'm mortified. So the one thing I do know is that this is a Kona, it's a Kona gray. So it's one of the Kona grays. I believe this is also, I know that this is a Kona gray. This is Shark. So I do know that this is Kona gray Shark. This is not Kona gray Shark. And now I need to go figure out what Kona gray it actually is. And that sucks. And I had one other bolt of gray hidden in the back room, and it's not that great either. So, I know you know my dilemma, right? I have 15 of these rounds done with the gray, so I can't stop now, and I do not wanna pick off the color that I started with. I'm just gonna have to buy more gray. I know you know my problems, right? You feel my dilemma. I know you do. My friends, it's time for us to part ways for the evening. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. If you are in the zone of totality, stay safe, use your approved glasses. Make sure that you get some sewing done. I would love to see what you're working on as always. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, take care. I will see all of you next